Vidilada Mamos Media. Atelenada Modebe, Alafu Mamos. Vidilada Mamos Media. Walenada Modebe, Alafu Mamos. Television on the radio, La Carola. You let her get a be. Molka, you the winning. Multimedia, Africa, and in diaspora. Atalanta Modube, Alafu Mamos. Mamos Media.
Good evening and welcome to today's news review. You live on Mamos Radio. I'm your host, Rohi Konatige.
Welcome to Gambia Today News Review. Listeners, you're tuned into Mamos Radio on Mamos Media. It is Thursday, 18th of March, 2021. I am Nene with a review of the nation's top headlines. It is immoral to talk negatively about a dead person. Fatoumata, people grieve in many different ways over someone's death and mourn the dead the way they like when someone dies. It is usual for people to mourn every death, but that the living must draw the proper lessons from the lives of those who have passed away. That it what makes our society make progress and builds peace in our community. There is an English saying that urges us never to talk ill of the dead. Unfortunately, some make people feel like they have to open their mourns with their itchy fingers on the keyboards, spreading hate speech and hurting loved ones after death. We're here to say it is okay to keep processing and talking about these issues if you need to. You may want to choose your audience wisely. Barrow, the Baronites and the Constitutional Impasse. Jangfa of the Century, Part 1. I am not a fan of the Constitutional Review Commission, CRC, and I have never been too sanguine about their project of drafting our next constitution. I still have reservations about some inbuilt imbalances regarding the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances that is supposed to hold our national government's architecture in equilibrium. However, despite the reservations which I hold strongly to date, I respect the views of the vast majority of Gambians that have been reflected in our draft constitution after nationwide direct consultations that cost the National Treasury upwards of $200 million if you factor in opportunity costs and other non-tangible expenses. My blames government inaction for Sanyang incident. In the wake of the recent riots in Sanyang, which led to the heightened tension and destruction of private and public facilities, after reports that a Gambian youth was killed by a Senegalese, former Interior Minister has said the failure of the government to heed both tension within communities was responsible for the melee. Quote, clearly there was no failure of intelligence on potential communal violence, land disputes, the economy and their impact on internal security, and therefore the Sanyang incident is symptomatic of the more critical phenomena, unquote, my Fati told the Standard. Fati added that the incident in Sanyang and elsewhere, quote, are not failures of intelligence, but rather the reckless failure to act on actionable intelligence. It is the inexplicable omission on the part of the policymakers to engage communities to tackle early warning signals and to effectively respond to the urgent needs of communities, unquote. Lawmakers say skin bleaching has implications on human health. Scores of National Assembly members have on Tuesday said skin bleaching has adverse negative impact and implications on the health of those involved in the act. The lawmakers make the comments while debating on the skin bleaching prohibition bill. Some of them argue that the bleaching the skin is against the dictates and teachings of Islam. Mohammed Mahanira, member for Sandu, said skin bleaching is against norms and values. International obligations one thing, but obligation to the Creator is also another thing, and as such I will not support repealing of the bill. Unquote. Access Bank customers threaten to close accounts as staff strike. Furious customers at Access Bank Limited have threatened to close their accounts as staff of the bank yesterday protested, demanding better pay. The customers who were at the bank for financial transactions and were not pleased with the situation threatened to close their accounts with the bank if the staff's sit-down strike continues. Financial transactions at the various Access Bank branches in the country were halted due to the sit-down. At the bank's main office on the Kairaba Avenue, where the staff gathered, some angry staffs were seen loitering within the premises of the bank, while others were seen sitting at a nearby tree brewing green tea attire. Bank securities were ordered to close the gate and only staff were allowed in. Thank you for tuning in, listeners, to Mamos Radio on Mamos Media.
Thank you, Nene, for today's news review. Listeners, you live on Mamos Radio. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll be back with the Mandinka news with Lamin Marong.
Assalamu alaikum badi ngolum bali konton na tolo na jamundan la annal badi ma Lamin Marong dolga kiyam man sam felen nata albela mo kan Mamos la radi bombala kondal daga kibaro min futanda le wati bitu karo maji atiltang anin say 2021 sango kombola kono anu simenke drong si kibaro dia la bajanin kake fonsi molu nin ka folu tentu meni ya lonko e kan sembentu ya fana bela nimbe kibaro nyinke kan wol kono tidiga makafuba be tentu lambe jaila ka fo nyaton kulu ka fo dingol be dawda nene on Mamos Media na foundation no be Gambia la dukula lu ka fo dingol bebe tentu lambe jaila anena lamo e kuru nyima men ya lonko be dunia fanna jamaala be tentula bake ele lamor ku nyimala anina doku lan be Gambia bantala mbafule be ala baraka bake ala doku kendola semenke ngadun kibaro kono na safala joto menkira professor Alhaji Yoro Jaloti ana sefro ke kotake anu anyu foko ako molu nyanta ka sutero ke ko ninata komen ka foko nyin luwa kuto nyimen data ya lani la nyamen na nyim kuti me ya lonko atafan kungo amake kuti me ya lonko asawarta kuto bake ako nyi luwa nyimen data me ya lonko CRC ya ka fome londi pour ka korsiro ke pour ka luwa kuto nyin dada ako ye doko nyimenke amanke komen nte fon ngana miro futande ge bake dalilo me ya tinna mangin taning sisi fala e ngo dalilolu ni ngolu mabole ana kontine dafa nga ko ako ninga jiben luwa nyinde data menna kuleli beje meya lonko ntela miroto olu nyanta ka korsi bake nina da ka foko membeta da mararo la wala memmu mansati e sembo menyanta dilala ani sembo menyen mamanyana ka dilala puru banko ni si tamano ananya aya hamenyamen akufanan ako ngamulu fanan horma meni ya lonko ye la miro ka fundi biribe ni luwa kuto nyinde dala kantun ye bankolu saad banko bele ben pour ka molla miro ni ngininka pour ka doko kendino ni luwa kuto ni medaka ako ngawo ngela ngo hormale kantu molle la miro fayje andu mojama menkere Gambia no luti ila miro lu yedundi ni luwa kuto ni konole akobade ni nata korosi fanan luwa nyin pour ka luwa nyin keno luwa de sain kodo men dunta kunna men dépensita kunna pour ka luwa nyin safe akodo siata bake men tata fo Gambia kodo million keme fula me ya lonko men ka lempojo ani kala namojo wala kodo wala dunta pour ka luwa nyin dada sa ni nata ko nyin giben han sango luwa nyin manna keno luwa ti folo ako han sain mirol be fay kan nyokane ka jiben luwa nyin be tamala nyamen ba han sain ko membulano nyoko no folo safa la jato atle safa si continue nga kibar do fana futandalma anu ata safira jara kontinere kotake ako amantane silola waran amanyan moka diamo ka kuma jawo fu moma sakume ya lonko amari manta balurin akonyu kutume ya lonko ya bay karo belela ka fo molla mo minjo data purkasi ka fo mina kuma jawo fala comme furema ako modum nabanta ala badiŋolu na ala kanuntelu ye ñala soto wara silol soto itolo ka ila balafañin i ka yitandi ñola ñamen molu ka saŋo konton sifa belela molu la ka fo ko ni kuyata molu ka jindi waran ka sambani silo men na i fatatale o kamala molu ñanta ka horma ke ko molu naata ila mo banta wala kanunte banta ni bo wo suno ta kan molu ñanta ka woto horma bake andu molu ñanta fanan ke hakkilotu mome yalon ka mantra baluren ka si ka kumajo fama a kontinera ko ñimu kuta me ya lonko mole ñanta ka karan ko nimmo banta e ñanta ke mira amari la balu wato kono ay kukendolu menke ye mira woluto e ñanta wol karan wara na mari la balu kono ay kujawol menke wo ñanta ka kete karanti pour salon e tabe la kulu tamandi la ñame ako hanit angalelu waran tubabulu la saferlalu fango ñim fole e ko ko kuma jow fo moma me ya lonko amari manta kende arin wara amari fata o mu kuta me ya lonko mo ñanta ka korosi ako bari mbayin tembo nyimento harma dungu dolu wulu katra hawlele soaring mobe bana drong gisi iba kuma jawol folama ko ay membalu ala balu nyin kono nyimu kute me ya lonko e mari wol nyanda ka korsi natra dum o e kuke to lafta ka kacha isa kacha no bare nyanda ka kacha ni nyalama me ya lonko e to dunna wala badul kasida ako ngalon ne molu be kacalin kelale ni nata modulu la baluwo kono e menke bari mare nyanta ka kisi ke wara nyanta ka feral landi e waran korosirke ni be kacalin kele e ba kacala nyaadile kibar bunda me ala kibaro bonde wala Mamos la mediati anu ngala kibaro men fam be karano e isa karano le Mamos la website www.mamostv.tv isingin be karano jele adu honorable mai fati adu fana hansanga continenta ay masakunda jalay ako niyaje kulu menkeda Sanyang watolu kubeje me alonko masakunda waran walum masakunda me marolo la ila e mawakili ware mankulu tanin nyala me alonko isi baykeno ware sinyu konyin isa bayno nyame ako ni nata ngibe nyi mamawmen keda Sanyang nyin tembo nyinto akule me alonko ay tinyar baleke anu ita fulo fanan ko kibaro nyin wara iman sobi ko nyin mamman sifa be kela nyi watulo ko nyin tundola me alon ko alabanta fan bu manni Gambia foninke ni min jodata ge me alon ko e ko tumiro ke e ko Senegal le wala fa atani men kada the Ministry of Interior to no men kada honorable mai fati ako masakunda man kota nin anyanta katanu nyamen ngene atinna punyin fitno nyin fafuta in temboto ako eta fala dun ko SAS me alon ko kullo polisolu bene wol fananka korsiro ke eta fala ko wolel man kibaro nyin futandi ma nyama waran polisol le man do ko ke nyanda ka nyamen nyim kute me alon ko masakunda la fon nyanda ka korsiro ke ka simfata ko nyin to fojana ba futala tan ako nyimmo be nyin korosi aketa mo be sedeleti ko nyin keta kude me alon ko masakunda le nya kasala wala na futata in tembondo men be alon ko wala mu korosirati ni sifa kana wuli yela do ko nyin kele bar masakunda le man simfata pour ka ko nyin ka atenko mbajana ka futa in blanto abe kacha ke kan tumo na ni standard be kacha kan anon at honorable my fati a continenta ako nyin keta kude me alon ko isa bannole anu nyanda ke mira ke fanan ikana ko nyin dukune ni sifa le ke de nyanda ka fintile pour ka je be simfa mentala nyamen ni laluto warangi mamo be damento pour ka sate nyaton ko do waran ka sate ka fodu pour ke kachande ka jibe ben sifa bayla nyamen fa kana keno fitinote kibar bunna men bondi wala mu standard la newspaper te no hani sangi nam député bumbalu ibe bembe be meeting ba ke kan pour ka chali ke ni nata komen mulka hesalo nyi menke iko kule me ya lonko elafta ka luwa me ya bay gambe bonko kan pour ka wulinde ka keno luwati me ya lonko nyanda ka kele bari yo nyo sabol be kering iko kule me ya lonko anin hadama dingula nyanto jata kende amanta o kola ni député wolu nyo sabol ke dul balanta hani sangi iko man lafi pra keno luwati pour ka hesalo keno luwati Gambia anun yin tala da tambila lon kacanyin keda anun inada ge fanan iko purka nyi hesalo ke amanke jada kende sababu ramti nyimu kute me ya lonko abuka jada kende dino mola anun e anyanta ke luwale te me ya lonko e nyanta ka kondemle purka na keno luwate game banko kan anungol kono doli la miro nyin futandi biribe nyu kachala iko nyin keda kute me ya lonko anin dino manta anungol kono dol fanana raje ko iko purka nyi hesalo nyinke amukule kulete me ya lonko anin islamo manta anun na adolina chosano men be balurinu wol be mum kulete me ya lonko yeyim bayle Muhammad Mahrena nyimukude me alon ko atafana mo deputy sandu ana atafana yimbo ako nyimukude me alon ko alina adoni na chosanu anin femmanta andu nina de ko bengin bantla bankulu warang dunela kaf ba wala miro nyinkela wala miro mu kuleti bar manso memo me adama dingoda wala bayro ke ko nyi hesala mu kuleti me alon ko amanyang atadun atabo silo leta la kajoko bring alaya bayle ko kulenga manyana ke otata manta ka fa be sonna pour ñi keno luwati Gambia banko kan kibar bu na men safa wala mu fore ala newspaper de anum fana bank me ka fay ko access bank ni wato lu ila cliano lu ko ye dandala koning bank ni man yele ka do ko ke itula account ni membe je ide soronale iko nyinketa watete mawni me keringe tumomena bank la dokulale wulita ikobe balamba ya kekan pour la joni kafuni moke itata do wala ani nginata batandroke meni ya lonko itole account soto nyin access bank ulmela kodo nyin ila fraka bondi waran kadundi e makeno tumomena dokulalo findita e balanding ikote doko kala iko sunta mena be lafre pour la joni kafu e ko dole ko futatale e be lafta pour ka ko do nyinta ani ngi watolu ito fanan kam faari mo meni beje e ko nata banku lalu medbe do ko le man do ko ke ito la bank account me beje be soronale andu ngol kono do kulal meni beje wol fanan be la balamba men ke kan e ko be sila le nata e la nyaton ko man ko sirke pour ka la faro ke la jora o te do fanata do ko ke la andu ngi sedol meni be fokan e ko e banku do kulalu do loji ye be murumurun kan banku ni tundola dolbe sirine be hata ke kan ba yebang e manta kata do kola anu ñu dula ñun to e nata foko kantre la men beje pour ya bunda ñu soron pour mo kana do ngeen dunno na manke banque do ko lalete o yatina men ya lon ko el account be tundola e kam fata bake e kibar bunda men bonde wala mo point la newspaper de mbade mo ñu kibaroti men futata may temmena ka futa dalma na be tata ko ma solo no le ninga fa ma foko sawnta al salo na harmani ya na so damala mo nal badi mala mi mar dol kay kiyam ma samba flan mbara fanyata.
Thank you, listeners. That was the end of tonight's news review and commentary from the
Mamos media. Atele nada modu be alafu Mamos. Media, wala nata modu be alafu Mamos. Television on the radio la Carola, ñun la daraja tabi, molka ñun la waning. Multimedia, Africa and in diaspora, atale nata modu be alafu Mamos. Mamos Media.